I don't give a fuck, bitch! Welcome to episode 2 of Rick's Minutes, the show where we talk about each episode of Rick and Morty as it comes out. We had our first episode of a distant pilot, as it was with the show itself.
Yes, right.
And now we're here. The show's actually airing. I'm joined by Best Guy Ever here.
What's up?
Oh, and I'm DigiBro. This is, it's not on my channel, so I should probably introduce myself as well.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
Yeah. This is fucking episode 2 of season 3.
It's
the
finally
fucking
here,
long-awaited.
We've been waiting for it, and now it's out. And I watched it, and it was good. And they put it right on AdultSwim.com so everyone can watch it, which I really appreciate.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
I watched all of season 1 the first time on AdultSwim.com, but I don't think they were doing them like simultaneous release before. I don't know if this was simultaneous, but it's the next day, and we watched it there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Good looking out, fucking Adult Swim.
It's the way to
they
go.
know what's up. Pretty cool episode, I thought, to start with.
Yeah, you think so? I was actually
what did you think?
A little bit underwhelmed. Thought it was
underwhelmed is a fair compared to the opener.
I mean, that
certainly.
was so amazingly great. Okay, like obviously it was not as good as that. I don't know. What do you think? Go on about your feelings in general.
All right. Well, my big thing about this episode is that I feel like this, in some ways, is making fun of the biggest criticisms that this show has been getting.
You think so?
Yeah, because what I see when people who don't like Rick and Morty talk about, particularly the fans of Rick and Morty, everyone makes fun of them for just like claiming that the show is super deep just because it's nihilistic. Like the parody that I've been seeing around of the show is that Rick just goes, nothing matters, blah, 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 and the fans go, oh, it's so deep. And in this episode, it kind of lampshades that, because that's literally what Summer does in this episode. She becomes this really edgy, nihilistic edgelord, and like that's her whole character in this episode, is that she becomes obsessed with nihilism and not giving a fuck and senseless violence, and like she just kind of embodies all the criticisms people have about Rick and Morty. And then the episode kind of looks at her and goes like, yeah, that is shallow, like she's just acting out.
It's so funny. Before I watched this, I happened to be on TV. I was just looking for like a download. I didn't find one, so I just went here. But like on the TV board where I thought there might be one, just like that, it was just full of those. It was just completely full of that exact criticism. And
that's the big one right now. It's a big
people
meme.
It definitely is. People, I mean, at least from the shit I was seeing, they were just taking that at face value and being like, lol, nihilism. And nothing beyond that. It's just, and that's true, that it definitely did lampshade that. I just didn't feel like it had any real counterpoint. And not that the show really needs to defend itself on that front. I just didn't find its argument like what's the resolution there at the end with Summer? She's just like, it's kind of like the exact same point that was made when Morty was like, yeah, blah, 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 nothing matters, come watch TV. Just like, yeah, just don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, things kind of matter. Things kind of do matter a little bit.
I mean, I won't say that this episode, like, had a strong message. Like, I don't think it did an amazing job of proving the critics wrong, if that's what it was going for. But I feel like what this episode was trying to say is, like, okay, that's not what this show is about, though. Yes, we go over the top with edgy violence and dark, brutal humor and nihilism. And, like, yeah, we know it can look goofy, but, like, the show is about this emotional side,
right?
Like it's always been like what has made the show so endearing and interesting is not that it's nihilistic and full of violence. There's plenty of shows like that. If I wanted that, I would have them make Korgath the Barbarian into a full show. Did you ever watch that?
Of course, it was great.
It was
for
just
one episode.
Fucking violence. That's all it was, and it was a fun time. But like, the reason people get attached to Rick and Morty the way they do is not because it is senselessly violent and nihilistic. Right, it's because there's this more interesting human story going on underneath it. And, like, the fact that it managed to... What I was impressed with this episode, and this is the only thing I would consider, like, absolutely impressive about it. Like, otherwise, it's a pretty standard Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah.
But, it's just the fact that it did manage to make, like, what the kids were going through and the wife feel like emotionally poignant on some level. Like, yeah, they're going through this, like, this hardship of the breakup, and, like, you know, their parents are getting divorced, and they're really trying to deal with these emotions, and, like, it was believable from them, but at the same time, managing to just shit on Jerry relentlessly. Like, everyone else, the way everyone else is dealing with the breakup is taken very seriously. The way that he's dealing with it is just completely shit on, and they don't care at all. And I thought that was, like, such a weird dynamic that worked really well for me.
I really do like the way they unequivocally accept the fact that Jerry's a fucking pussy loser and there's no redeeming qualities to him. That's just not open for debate. It's a closed issue. That is
not what these kids are hung up about. Like, they're having trouble dealing with, like, in fact, what they're hung up about is that they're frustrated with him. Like, neither of them is mad at the fact that their parents are splitting up. They're mad that Jerry's not doing anything about it.
They're mad that he's hanging around and being a namby-pamby piece of shit and like trying to, and he's not committing. He's not fucking committing to shit. He's just being a little bitch, trying to hang. He's being a fucking orbiter of this family is what he is right now. It's very embarrassing, and he needs to nut up already.
And I think that's a really kind of fascinating dynamic for a family breakup in a show. That, like, the kids are, like, they're mad at him for the same reasons the mom is. And they're just like, dude, you need to either get the fuck out of our lives or fucking nut up and do something about this, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, when they see that he's not going to nut up, and then both their conclusion is, oh, I guess you are a huge pussy. So, you know, maybe stop hanging around us. You know, like, god damn. Show's so brutal to Jerry.
It really is. I love, and that like the way that it delivers that to me through like Morty's whole quest of getting over the fact that his dad's a pussy. Like, I like all that stuff a lot more than I like those, like, and I know it was obvious on purpose, but like the super on the nose joke of the, like, you're a pussy, or like whatever that whisper was. Like, I get it, that's fine, but I'm just glad that we were away from that really fast, because it's way more interesting to explore the issue through the lens of the other people in his life, specifically, you know, Morty and the gang, who are the interesting characters, as opposed to Jerry, who we all know is shit. We all get it.
I'm satisfied with the amount of Jerry that was in this episode, because I expressed a very strong desire that now that we're kicking Jerry out of the show, we commit to that he's gone and we don't focus on him too much. And, like, the way he was presented in this episode felt like he was not really a main cast member anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like he was just there. He was around a little bit because we needed a little bit of him, but, like, the show is unequivocally shitting on him at this point. He is not a major character. He is there to be shit on by the show.
I'm still a little bit wondering if that was like the gag of this episode, to shit on Jerry intensely, and that there will be some change to that as we go on through season 3, but, you know, there's no way to know. There's no way to know yet.
Yeah. So, how did you feel about the overall Mad Max parody world? I
felt it was, you know, I really liked the Purge episode. I thought that was a really great episode. Yeah. You know, this was a fine, like, parallel for what they were trying to, not a parallel, but it was a fine, you know, representation of, like, how Summer was feeling and the kind of world she wanted to live in right now, where she, I don't know, where she, like, has control over things in her life, as opposed to her parents' life, or, you know, her parents' relationship, where she has no control over it. So here's her, and the same with Morty. Like, Morty is able to find a way to have power over something in his life by coming out of this place. You know, the setting itself was cool. I like the characters that were there, I guess. You know who I didn't like? Buckethead Man. Just like that, he was weird. He was. Like,
I didn't like his voice performance.
Yeah,
like he felt he was weirdly in between trying to be like, I don't know, like, he was a little too deadpan, almost. Like, he's saying all this shit that's, like, supposed to be this, like, you know, like, he's supposed to be talking like one of the people in these movies, but he's got, like, a totally normal guy voice. And they didn't, like, play it up enough in either direction for it to work for me. I was not happy with his voice performance.
His performance here makes me terrified that there's intentions to make this character, like, important or recurring in some way.
He'll never show up again.
I don't know, man. I hope that's true. Because, like the fact that nothing bad happened to this character at all in any way makes me think that he's being set up to come back and just, like, oh my god. Honestly, this might be the worst scene in any Rick and Morty episode I've ever seen. That, like, mustache conversation about the helmet. Like, I know
Yeah.
later on it got to the point where, like, Summer, like, acknowledges that it's a shitty conversation, but that was, like, a minute of my time being wasted on discussions about this fucking dude's hair and, like, the obvious relationship they were building up between him and Summer. Oh, my God. Like, that wasn't clever. That wasn't witty. It was just boring. It wasn't that long, so I'm not going to, like, dwell on it, ruining the episode or anything. But, man, did I not give a shit about that scene.
Yeah. I mean, that character to me, what I felt like while watching it was this sounds like an act, like this is clearly a guest star.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He had that guest star feel, and I felt like this seems like a dude who probably like isn't in voice acting much. Like this is a normal actor who's doing voice acting for the first time. I just looked it up, and it's Joel McHale, the guy who played the main character in Community.
Well, there you go. That's the reason why he's so weird and sucks and filled up the script, because he's a famous actor.
Great actor, great in Community.
Sure.
Not exactly known for his voice acting. He has been in BoJack Horseman and a couple of he hasn't not ever done voice acting.
He
but he's
could
not
be
a
the best voice actor in the world, and the dialogue written for him was terrible because they were trying to fill space. And like I know, okay, you know what? This is good because it makes it seem less likely that it'll come back a lot, but it does like this character was weirdly protected by like an aura of like nothing bad's gonna happen to this guy. I could just tell immediately from the way his dialogue was written that this guy was like special in some way, and he didn't earn that or deserve it in any way.
No.
It was weird and uncomfortable, and I hope they don't do it more.
I thought he was a boring joke.
Yeah.
Like, I got what the joke was, and I thought it was boring, and I didn't think he was definitely the weakest element of the episode for me. I feel like the thing about Rick and Morty is that it does lots of parodies, and it usually either does them in a way that's like so like they take the original concept and they do something even more inventive with it, or take it beyond the impossible. Like when they did Inception in like episode 2, with the Freddy Krueger meets Inception. That's genius. You know, what if Freddy Krueger got into the Inception world? Like that's a good idea. Sometimes, though, they do a parody and they, like, seem to deliberately half-ass it because they're like, look, we're not really here for the parody. Like, it's just, you know, it is what it is. It's there. And sometimes that doesn't work as well for me, and this is one of those cases where I was like, they didn't even... I'm glad they at least didn't, like, mention that it's a Mad Max world like they usually would. Like, Purge Planet, they continually are like, this is the Purge Planet.
But
Welcome
that's what
to Purge
was so
Planet.
funny. Like, they just used Purge
that was funny
to
in that
describe
one.
everything in that episode. Yeah, in that episode it totally
That
worked.
was great. I'm glad they didn't say, like, oh, we're in Mad Max world this time, because, like, it was such a boilerplate, like, Mad Max world. You know, like, they didn't do much with the Mad Max concept.
It was so obviously Fury Road that I felt it was weird that they didn't mention that specifically. I felt like it's got literally everything that Fury Road had. I mean,
well, it also has the Thunderdome, so that's Mad Max.
It's just Mad Max in every way.
They did name drop the Thunderdome at least, so you know, which they say, oh, don't you mean the Blood Dome or whatever? He's like,
hilarious joke, guys, hilarious joke. I don't know.
That was all right, but yeah, it felt like you know. Well, like you said, this is a good idea for, like, taking Summer to a nihilistic world. Yeah. That part of it's good, but, like, the world in itself, I felt like this was one of the weaker parodies that Rick and Morty has done of, like, a world, just because the characters didn't feel right. They didn't feel like the mustache guy did not feel like he was in a Mad Max world. And, like, the only part that I thought was genius was the very end, when they use the Crystal Stone and it becomes just modern society, and it immediately ruins it for Summer.
That was good stuff.
That was the only part where I was like, oh, yes, like, this is a great idea. But they could have done that with other settings other than Mad Max, you know. And
you're absolutely right about that. But, like, okay, what was the deal with the fact that there's just a king in Mad Max world? Like, how does that in any way make sense? There's nothing about this that is at all reasonable. They're just like, is a king who, like, is the slave?
That's in Fury Road. There's a king.
In Fury Road, what's his face? Immortan Joe is like their warlord god king. Like, this is just some
Oh yeah,
what is that?
Yeah,
total.
Well,
that's like total left turn. Like, they just went from Fury Road world into, like, medieval world. How did that happen, and why, and what the fuck?
So it was that the arm that Morty had had a vengeance because it had its village burned down.
Right.
And that was at the behest of some king. And yeah, there's just like a king in a castle. Like, that was also really weird. I don't know. I haven't seen all the Mad Max movies. I don't know if that's a thing in the first one. Like, I've seen Road Warrior and I've seen most of Thunderdome and all of Fury Road, but there's no kings in any of those, you know?
I'm looking at the environments they're in right now, and it's like just a fucking fantasy castle place. It's so not Mad Max. Again, yeah, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe this wasn't a Mad Max, but it feels bizarre and weird, and I hate it.
That is a strange thing. Yeah, but I mean... Yeah, there's
also
definitely elements of this episode that are less strong.
Funny. It was just not.
Yeah, the king guy.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything with him.
Yeah.
There's okay, but here's the thing: like all that stuff is kind of not that important. Mm-hmm. You know, those are like, yeah, okay, it's not the best, you know, but it's fine, it's serviceable. The one thing that did actually actively bother me throughout this episode is that the way this plot played out should not be possible with Rick's powers. Like, there are so many moments he could have just shot a portal gun and it would be over.
Oh, yeah,
like,
I hear you.
Why does he need to hatch a scheme to steal this rock? They could have just grabbed the rock and left. Like, that's something... in episode 1 of this season, Rick destroyed the world government while simultaneously kicking Jerry out of his house, all in one fell swoop. And he did it like... He's the biggest schemer in the whole world, and he has to, like, fumble and bullshit his way through trying to get this rock. I don't understand why he didn't just kill everyone. This is a guy who doesn't... At the start of the episode, he's, like, about to leave Summer on the planet. And he tells Morty, like, oh, you've got infinite sisters, but, you know, I don't want to hear you bitch, so I'll save this one. And then 10 seconds later, he sees, like, this big rock that he wants, and he doesn't just murder everyone and take it. Like... Really? That seems like something he would do, you know?
They explain that away with the one line of, like, there's too much heat on it. Pretty weak excuse.
No.
Pretty fucking weak excuse.
Too many, like, there's also a moment where they try to excuse where, like, when he's in the car with the other two and he says, you know, I've got a portal gun and I could just leave you guys here. And I'm like, yeah, but you could also just shoot couldn't you just teleport them? Like, I know you can use this for more than what you're doing right now. Like,
yeah.
It just felt very forced to me that Rick had to be in this scenario where he has to, like, oh, I gotta sneak around. And I'm like, you don't have to sneak around. We know you don't have to sneak around, you know? Again, I think everything in this episode is facilitating something that I do like. Right. I like the story with Summer and Morty. I love the Morty's arm subplot. I thought that was the best part of the episode. That shit was hilarious.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I don't know. It was one of those things that I did enjoy it as it was happening. It just kind of fell a little flat for me in terms of the humor. This whole episode I found pretty darn unfunny overall, like compared to a normal episode. I don't know. I felt like the wit was just dulled down in general. Maybe for this, like, cameo of this other character going on or something. But I liked what they did with the arm. I thought it was funny that there'd be a sentient arm that just goes on a rampage to get vengeance for, like, its burned family and
I really like the way that, like, the relationship between Morty and the arm develops and how it, like, becomes more and more... Because at first, it's just, like, a gag that, like, the arm remembers fighting. So it punches out Rick, and it's just, like, a really strong arm. And then it goes and it just murders everybody. And then as Morty, like, comes to understand this feeling of brutality and, like, wanting this as a way to vent, like, he can communicate more deeply with his arm. And then, like, the arm goes on this whole journey to resolve its own conflicts that have been established who knows how long ago. And, like, you know, the scene where Morty drowns the king and, like, he's just, like, talking to Rick while drowning the king with this big beefy arm, and then the arm goes away because it's satisfied, but it's not. He's not actually dead, and then Rick helps him to, like, finish the job. That was great.
Now,
to me.
That was a good ending.
My favorite
and I love the fact that this whole thing kind of hinges on this, like, incredibly vague notion of muscle memory, which is not a real thing. Yeah. And, like, that's like the joke that this is all propped on. Now, that's funny. That I like a lot.
That's great. That's my favorite thing. The arm thing is the best part. And again, I like Summers. I like I like that Summer's development, again, seems like an answer to the criticism of the show. That, it's just nihilistic bullshit. And, like, that's literally what she is. And she just becomes this, like, total hard ass who's murdering everybody. And then, like, you know, because it felt like this is a natural progression for Summer. We've seen her continually get more and more into this work, you know. But she's gotten to a point where it's self-destructive and not really smart. And, you know, Rick will never take these two as actual pupils. That will never happen. He will give them advice along the way. He will give affirmation when they do something that he thinks is cool. And he will give consternation when they're in his way. But he will never just tell Summer, like, hey, you're acting retarded. Act this way. He'll just watch and be like, oh, she's gonna get herself killed. Fuck her. You know? Like, his attitude towards her is really funny to me. That, like, when he sees her, like, oh, I'm gonna hang back and fucking fight these guys, he's just like, well, fuck her. Let's get out of here, you know? And,
classic shit.
Yeah, it's fun. This show walks such a tightrope for me where, like, I think I discussed this on the last episode that, like, I'm not really big into, like, glib violence most of the time. But this show manages to do it in just such a way where, like, I don't know, it never, like, offends me. Like, it can be insanely turbo-violent, but I always feel like there's something behind it.
Well, you know, it's a combination of, you know, because this is a cartoon, I feel like they can get away with that stuff. Like, I'm never, like, disgusted or anything on like, a super deep level by the shit I see. I mean, it's actually sometimes, like the rape of Morty, like that, or the almost rape of Morty. Now, that's a disturbing
But that's
scene.
supposed to be disturbing, and it's presented
it was great,
that way.
and they did it just
it's not
right.
glib at all.
Exactly.
And
it's all about the
thing.
attitude. It's the attitude that frames everything. Yeah, that's what.
Like, I don't think they've ever done a violent scene where it was like the wrong person dying for the wrong reason, you know? Like, if they just, for instance, like, had Jerry just, like, blow up or something grossly like that, and then everyone was like, oh, well, fuck him, it'd be like,
that'd be
really?
bad
That's how you're gonna... Yeah. But shitting on Jerry constantly is fine, because, like, Jerry does deserve it. Like, he is a shit, you know? So, like, there is satisfaction in watching the whole show piss on him, but it does so in a way that's not, like, cruel and unusual, you know? Like, the dog eating his welfare check at the end, like, he gives it to the dog.
That was funny. That was
you
funny.
know, like,
yeah, he just pussies out, as he always does, of course.
Like, on the... If you're thinking of it, like, at first I'm thinking, okay, this is, like, cosmic level of, like, fucking with him. But, like, then it's him who ultimately does it. Like, if the dog had just come up and eaten the welfare check, it wouldn't have been that funny. It's just like, okay, whatever, we get it, you're shitting on Jerry. But the fact that he gives it to the dog, it's just like, what are you doing? You fucking pathetic idiot.
I think about this a lot. I think about the fact that I could totally stomp a dog to death if it ever attacked me. I'd think about that because people always talk about dogs sticking them on people. That. I love dogs and would never want to do it unless necessary. But I could totally stomp a dog. I could beat a dog. I'm just saying, Jerry, you could have beat that dog, you pansy bitch. That was he could have taken him. I know he could have. Yeah, that was good. That was good shit. That was like the good answer to like the first joke that was like the little you're a loser or whatever.
Yeah.
That didn't make me laugh. At the end it did. So you know what? Even that joke I suppose did have like a payoff to it at the end. Right. So fair enough.
I didn't completely understand the scene where Summer gave him the skull. Yeah. I wasn't sure what they communicated to one another.
I didn't know what Jerry was getting at when he was like why is he like nothing, like, is he just getting blackpilled by his divorce now? And he also, but like, yeah, go on.
I thought maybe he just didn't understand and was just like, okay, whatever, you know. But then he said something like
something was going on there.
Yeah, I didn't get it. That scene was confusing for me.
I watched it twice, and I am baffled by what the fuck they attempted to communicate there.
Yeah.
Did you like the little Robo Morty becoming sentient and wanting life? You know,
that was pretty fun.
I liked it.
I like that's another one of those things that this show does an amazing job of like just throwing in like high level sci-fi concepts that other entire shows would be based on and just having it as like a one-off gag in the background. Like, you know, this idea that Rick's, which, I mean, granted, they've done this exact joke before when he built the butter passing robot, and it was like, you know, what is my purpose? And he's like, you pass butter. And that was probably a better executed version of the joke.
Better and speedier.
Yeah, but this was still all right.
Yeah, I liked it.
What I like about this joke is mostly the part when they all leave and then the mom's like confused about the two different versions because she's like, want to go run in a stream? And he's like, no, what the fuck are you talking about?
I did like that. And I just feel a need to say, like, okay, she's like, she is, there's something wrong with this lady that she's not asking questions about what's going on here. And I suppose that this has been well documented by now that she will just excuse anything that her dad does. She just will tune that shit out. She's hashtag damaged for sure.
Yeah. And she's an alcoholic.
Well, that too. I'm sure that's related. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love her. I love her character.
I can't say that I love her. I want more out of her. I like her in her position in the story as this like poor woman who's been so emotionally manipulated by her evil father. Well, not evil, but basically evil. Yeah, I like that a lot. But even Jerry, I think, has more character to him at this point. She hasn't like she's
more
been such
character,
like,
but he's always been like the guy who you're like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I don't even know if I necessarily like want a character arc for what's her name?
Slipping my mind.
Daughteru, whatever her name is. I don't even know if I want her to have one. I feel like she actually does belong in this story as the Rock. Like she's something that Rick does seem to care about, sort of, and like at least in the idea of her, he wants to protect her in general, and that's good. And then she can sit here while her family does crazy stuff around her and be the alcoholic who's totally oblivious to the things happening. And I like that. I appreciate it.
I feel like this show is in some way running into a danger of like this, because we are presented with this idea that like, Rick will look out for her at least, but like he has abandoned one of her in season 1 when he just like left that universe behind. So like, I don't know. Sometimes
like the show fond of her. He's like fond of her,
Yeah. I feel like this show runs into problems with consistency on like what Rick will do or can do. Like the fact that he couldn't get them out of the situation much more easily in this episode, especially when he seemed lucid. Like there are times where Rick fucks up, but it seems like he's just literally like in an like a insane episode, where like his mind is not working right, and that's why he's not doing it. And I'm fine with that. I'm okay with like Rick's got space dementia. That makes sense to me. Or Rick is just drunk, or high. I'm okay with that. But when it seems like he's completely right of mind, he's in his normal good sense, and yet he's like not able to solve what seems like a basic situation, or like he's making different moral decisions from what he did earlier in the episode. It's just like, you're playing a little too close to the fire there.
I hear what you're saying. But like, so Rick has always had like, it's been his modus operandi to like involve Morty on these like extremely like pedantic adventures to get like little knickknacks or whatever the fuck that he's trying to do.
That is true.
For whatever. So like, there's I'd say like last episode there was an absolute like power level spike in Rick's like mental abilities to like he's unmatched completely on every level. No one can do anything to this dude. He just completely decimated the entire universe with sheer mental power. And like there's no way anything can compete with that. Like if he stayed at that level all the time. So I think that the only way they could do that was to like elevate him to that status for an episode, and now we have to swallow a pill that like, okay, we're gonna dial this back a little bit.
I just think
is there a way to avoid it?
Like there
stories you can write with him in like situations where he just like isn't aware, isn't paying attention, things like that.
I think so. Like, I mean, if you look at episode 1, like in that whole episode, he's just fucking insane. Like he's when he makes Ricky like when he makes Morty wear the when he makes him wear the boots, the gravity boots, like doesn't explain them properly and stuff like that, And like there's lots of times where Rick. Like you said, pedantic adventures, but usually it's like his inattentiveness. Like, in the big party episode where he makes Morty go get the Calaxian crystals, and he's like, Morty, you gotta get these crystals, it's super important. And Morty has to go on this whole trick, and he comes back and he just snorts them, and it's just like, it's just crack, with a fleeting high. And like, those moments sell me on like, Rick is just like on a different plain when it comes to like how he thinks about like risk and reward, you know?
Yeah.
This episode didn't sell me on that. This episode felt like Rick was completely in his right mind because he was like the straight man this episode.
Yeah.
Rick was the straight man in an episode, and he still fucks things up, you know? Usually when he's the straight man, he's like completely in control and like, you know, no Morty, I have a portal gun, dumbass, you know?
Like, Rick, so basically, I guess there's sort of a rule, I guess, about that like Rick cannot be placed in a situation where he has a clear goal and clear methods of accomplishing that goal. You can't ever put him in that situation because he should just be able to solve it immediately. It has to be vague. Yeah, it has to be some like weird thing, like when he had to build a business that uncursed items that were cursed by the devil. Like that's perfect. That's exactly what this guy should be doing.
And the scene where he just like gets tired of it and burns it all down.
Yeah,
like, that's a Rick move, you know?
Exactly. That's
and
exactly
I understand
right.
why it happened here. It's because this episode's not about Rick. This is not a Rick episode. It's completely about Summer and Morty. And so I understand why Rick takes a back seat, but I just think they could have done it more carefully. Like, it was a little too blatant. Like, I'm looking too hard at Rick's plot line and going, what? Why is this the B plot? This doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, hey, let's talk about how you feel about, like, specifically the underlying plot thread of the divorce. You feel like that's moving along? You feel like we're going anywhere with that in general?
Yeah, I feel like the kids resolved their feelings for it, and maybe this is the last we'll see of Jerry for a while.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
It felt like a natural progression from the previous episode, and it felt like the show was really trying to reassure me that, like, look, we have things to say about Jerry, but we're not bringing him back. He's not, like, still a major character. It felt like they were bending over backwards to reassure me, look, this is just about the kids dealing with their feelings towards Jerry. He is really gone. That's really a thing. Like, look, they're not trying to get him back. They've all come to terms with him being gone. Believe me, he's not coming back. And I'm like, all right, you've convinced me. I'm glad. I'm glad you've convinced me.
That farewell scene with Summer, I think if I understood what was going on, what was intended, I think would have been a good sort of farewell scene for Jerry for a while, and we can just leave it at that for a good while.
Unfortunately, it was confusing.
Yeah, somebody tell me in the comments what the fuck they meant, because I do not understand what was going on. So Summer gave a, you know what? Never mind. Yeah, just tell me. Just tell me.
Yeah. And there's plenty of moments at this episode that I thought were pretty cool. Summer shooting the car and it flipping over her, and then Rick just being like, okay, that was cool, you know? Like, I love when, my favorite Rick moments are when he just appreciates the world around him and what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And the ending scene, again, like where the whole society turns into just like modern society. Now, granted, I thought the actual conversation between Summer and Buckethead guy was weak. Like, I didn't think it was funny. I got what they were doing, but it wasn't, like, funny joke-wise.
Completely.
But the entire scene as a concept was definitely a great idea. Like, I laughed really hard just when I saw her, like, driving up to the place, and I was just like, oh my god, they fucking did it. you know?
I think this, like, that character really fell victim to... Is nepotism the right word? I feel like because he's buddies with this guy, he gave him a role and gave him a whole bunch of lines and made sure nothing bad happened to him and gave him a bunch of silly stuff like, oh, your mustache, you're such a weird, quirky character. Like that. I mean,
Joe McHale's a great actor, but
this character sucked dick.
Not cast well.
He was written poorly and acted badly, and everything about this character was really annoying. This character should have fucking died by the end or something. Fucking Summer should have blown off his fucking head at the end. Like, that would have been, I don't know, cool or something.
That's a little unnecessary.
All right, I guess that's unnecessary.
It was funny. It was funny enough that Rick took the stone and damned that whole civilization back to what it was before.
I'm just annoyed by the fact that nothing bad happened to this character, and I could sense that was going to be him from the second he was like revealed to be. I don't know. He was just obvious that this guy was, like, above everybody else. It annoyed me. He felt protected by fucking plot armor. That's what he felt like. I felt plot armor on this character, and it annoyed me. Because he wasn't funny, and nothing good came of him. Other than being married to Summer for that one joke that dragged on too long and got annoying anyway.
Well, that's about all I have to say about the episode.
Yeah.
You said all you had?
I think so.
Overall, I thought it was a It was good. It was not like a great Rick and Morty episode. It's not one that's gonna like keep me rewatching it the way the first 3 episodes of season 2 did.
Yeah.
Or the first episode of season 3. Like, you know, it's just one of those like, yeah, all right. You know, I won't skip it in a rewatch of the show, but it's not incredible.
I agree. I think I like it a little bit less than you in general. I really thought, I don't know, something about the humor wasn't doing it for me as much as consistently. And really all this is relative to Rick and Morty being like the best show ever. It's just, It just didn't, you know, live up to that bar for me on that front the whole time. Some of it was great, like we said. I'd give it a okay. It was okay to good, I guess. A light okay, decent good, whatever. Something like that.
All right, that's it, folks. Come back next week.
See you then, buddy. Bye-bye.